Hi, hello, namaste. Welcome to the MathMads YouTube channel. Today, in the revision series, our topic of discussion is quadratic equations. This chapter has a weightage of 5 marks in your final exam. 1 mark can be an MCQ and the other can be a case study or a 2 mark or 3 mark questions. Don't worry, I got it all covered for you. We will we will do the revision of the chapter first and then we will solve some problems as well. So, in this chapter, the most important thing, there are just four important things for you. First is the standard form, okay, and then the type of solutions we have and the nature of roots. These are the only things that you have to remember. Then you will be able to solve all the problems very well. Now, what is quadratic equation? Quadratic means degree 2. Very simple. And then equation is something which has an equal to sign. Now, in quadratic equations, in this particular chapter, we are restricting ourselves to single variable, just x or y or z. We are not going to take double variables in the same equation, just a single variable. Now, using that single variable, how am I going to write the standard form? I told you degree is 2. That means you can have, let's say variable is x, then degree can be 2, degree can be 1 or degree can be 0. And we know that anything raised to the power 0 is 1. So let me take it as 1. So x square, x and 1. Now, something is missing here. That is the coefficients. Let me take a, b and c as coefficients. Then ax square, bx and 1 into c will give you c itself. Ax square plus bx plus c is your standard form. Now, this is not an equation yet because there is an equal to missing, right? So, if I write it as equal to 0, then this becomes your standard form. Notice that everything is in the decreasing order of your powers, right? Now, there's some restriction on these coefficient values also. Now, a, b, c, these can be real numbers, okay? But a cannot be 0 because if a is 0, your quadratic term is vanishing, right? This becomes 0, then you're left with a linear equation. But we want a quadratic equation. So, a cannot be 0, okay? So, if you remember the standard form, there will be questions to reduce to standard form. They'll give you a compound equation and you're supposed to reduce it to standard form. So, you have to remember this, okay? Now, once the equation is formed, you're supposed to find the value of x. And that is nothing but solution to a quadratic equation. Now, how do you find the values of x? In 8th standard, you have already learned how to split a middle term when you have a trinomial. The same thing we are going to do, that is by factorization. So, solution by factorization. So, if I have a polynomial, quadratic polynomial, ax square plus bx plus c. Let's say at x is equal to alpha. Okay, now what is alpha? It's just a Greek alphabet. Okay, so if I put alpha into the polynomial, what do I get? A alpha square plus b alpha plus c. Now in place of x, I've just put alpha. Here x is a variable, but alpha is some constant like 2, 3, 4. It can be anything. So a alpha square plus b alpha plus c. Now, suppose this, once I substitute alpha, this result is equal to 0, then I can call it as a 0 of this polynomial, or I can call it root of this quadratic equation or solution of the quadratic equation. 3 terms, root of the quadratic equation, solution of the quadratic equation, or 0 of the quadratic polynomial. Very simple. Okay, so this is the root or solution of the quadratic equation, or we can also say that alpha satisfies the quadratic equation. Okay, these are the 3 things. Now, this is by factorization. Now, how will you find by formula? I am sure this is already in your heads now. X is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, right? So this is the formula, and you can see that there are 2 roots here. Once there's a quadratic equation, you will have 2 roots, you know that. So if once you take plus, you get 1 root. If you take minus, you get the other root. So there are 2 roots. Now you have to remember this out. Here, a, b and c are real numbers, I've already told you. So if I substitute b, a and c here, this is a real number, this is a real number. So if I divide them, I again get a real number. But what happens inside the square root is the most important thing. Real number minus real number is also a real number, but that can be negative, positive, or equal to 0. Suppose this is negative, what happens? Root of a negative number, do we know anything that is a root of a negative number? No, we don't know. So there's something about this that is very special. So this is called the discriminant. Discriminant, which determines the nature of the roots, right? So d is equal to b square minus 4ac. Now, I told you it can take three values: less than 0, equal to 0, and greater than 0. Now, if it is less than 0, do we get any real values? No, we don't get any real values. So the roots are not real. But if it is equal to 0 or greater than 0, it will be real in both cases. But there should be some difference. So if it is equal to 0, the roots are real and equal. Okay. If it is greater than 0, then the roots are real and distinct. That is two different roots you get. This is the summary of the chapter. Okay. So if you know these four things, then all the problems are easy for you. Now let's solve some MCQs. But before that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe so that you can see more revision content for your exams. Okay, now let's start with the first MCQ. What is or the roots of the equation 3x square is equal to 6x? Now this is the one of the simplest MCQs that you can get, right? So 3x square is equal to 6x. So if I take 6x to the left hand side, what do you get? 3x square minus 6x is equal to 0. Let me tell you, most of you will be tempted to cancel x and x here. Don't do that, because any quadratic equation has two roots, right? So if you cancel and you get only one root, you're going to go wrong. So take it to the left hand side. Now you can take 3x common. X minus 2 is left, is equal to 0. So 3x can be 0 or x minus 2 can be 0. This is the factorization method of solving quadratic equation. So here x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 2. So which is that option? Option B. So 0 or 2. I hope this is clear. Now let's go to second MCQ. If the quadratic equation has real roots, then the value of k is. This is one of the classic questions that you can get. So x square minus 8x plus k is equal to 0. This is the quadratic equation we have. And they're saying that it has real roots. So I told you, we have already learned nature of roots when we discussed the concepts, right? So in nature of roots, which category had real roots? Discriminant is greater than 0 or discriminant is equal to 0. So discriminant can be greater or equal to 0 when the particular equation has real roots. So what is discriminant? B square minus 4ac. Here a will be equal to 1, b is equal to minus 8 and c is equal to k, if you compare it with the standard form. So now you substitute in place of b square minus 4ac, what do you get? Minus 8 square minus 4 into 1, that is a, into c, that is k, is greater than or equal to 0. Now on further simplification, what do you get? 64 minus 4k is greater than or equal to 0. Transfer minus 4k to the other side. So 64 will be greater than or equal to 4k. So if you cancel this out, you're going to get k is less than or equal to 16. So where is that option? Option B. So this is one of the classic questions. So please practice more on such problems. Okay. Let's go to the third one. If x is equal to 3 is one of the roots of the quadratic equation, then the value of k is. So x is equal to 3 is one of the roots. It's given. So what is the quadratic equation I have? X square minus 2kx minus 6 is equal to 0. Since it's already a root, just substitute x is equal to 3 in the given quadratic equation. So what happens? 3 square minus 2k into 3 minus 6 is equal to 0. 3 square is 9 minus 6k minus 6 is equal to 0. So on further simplification, what do you get? 3 minus 6k is equal to 0. 3 is equal to 6k. So value of k will be equal to 3 by 6 or 1 by 2. So k is equal to 1 by 2. So whenever they give one of the roots and they ask you to find the other root, or they ask you to find the value of unknown, just substitute that in the given quadratic equation. It's very simple. Now, this question has been repeated many times, and it's one of the questions that can confuse you, but let me tell you, it's very simple. Let p be a prime number. The quadratic equation, it's having its roots as factors of p is. Now, what are the factors of p? Any prime number will have two factors, that is 1 and the number itself. So factors of p are 1 and the number itself. The question states that these two, 1 and p, are the roots of this particular quadratic equation. That means x can be 1 or x can be p. Right? X can be 1 or x can be p. Relate that here. See, at the end of it, you get roots, right? Now, in the first equation, I have the roots. I have to go back. So, what do? Take x minus 1 into x minus p. And just multiply them. What do you get? X square minus x minus px plus p. Right? Since this is an equation, I have to equate it to 0 as well. Now, minus x and minus px, what can I take common? X or minus x. So, x square minus x into 1 plus p is equal to 0. Which option has this? It is in option C. So, these are some of the MCQs. Stay tuned for more such